Hello and welcome, Rangers. I'm Joe from the Power Rangers Corner, and today I'm presenting on Lord Zedd, sworn enemy of all that is good and decent. Unfortunately, Dan won't be joining me as he's visiting family and whatnot. As I mentioned, if you watch our reaction or my reaction video to the new Lord of the Rings Golem game, you'll find that, yeah, Dan's off visiting family. And I've been dog sitting with Jet. Of course, you can't see him. I'll just adjust this. Not so you can see him, just so that better view. And I can relax a little as my left leg is killing me. Anyways, since Dan's not here, I don't know if this is going to be a shorter or longer discussion. This will depend on if someone shows up in the chat. This is a much smaller channel than the Brothers Kryn, so one can only hope people do show up, even if it's only one person. Anyways, I was sucking up, Jet. You're just trying to lick me so that I'll pay only attention to you. Pay attention only to you and take you outside. It's already been out twice. So, anyways, Lord Zedd, in his first appearance in the 90s, had quite the impact. He was, to be quite honest, probably in some ways, the greatest of the rogues any Power Ranger team ever had to deal with, at least in his first season. And he was to remain, I think, pretty incomparable and indomitable in comparison to a lot of others. This is not to say that they're not good. They certainly are. You look at the likes of Drakina, Vipra, even Master Vile. These are great rogues, truly great ones. And the trouble is that Zedd just had something that was almost greater. He was a lot more chilling in some ways, but he was also a lot funner in others. He was just such a weird, peculiar villain in a way. Like, he's basically Skeletor from space, but with the Sauron edge and even a satanic edge to him. Let's be honest, there was a satanic scare around Lord Zedd. And while I don't agree with a lot of some who objected to Power Rangers, Zedd is someone whom he is basically alien Satan. And it's what's so fun about the character. He's a demon. He's a devil. Like, come from the furthest depths of space to try to conquer and destroy the Earth. Now, he does away with Rita, who, well, is just a space witch, and something more of a administrative governor of the region, where Zedd is an all-conquering warlord, an emperor, in the likeness of a Cao Cao or Julius Caesar type, or even Agamemnon. And, okay, Jet, you're getting a little too attached to my leg there. Sorry, dog's leaning his head against my leg. Anyways, Zedd, in his first appearance, like, he comes in flashing with electricity, and you see him with that snake that he turns into his staff, and he often does turn the snake into a staff in some appearances. So he honestly has, I'm going to be honest, he's really awesome. Sorry, I gush because I really do like Lord Zedd. He's quite unique and quite formidable, to be quite honest. In his first appearance, he also seems to heat up the room when enraged, which he would still later have this effect to him. Now, in regards to the 1995 movie, he has spent 6,000 years looking for Ivan Ooze, I believe. And likely he did not have much contact with Ooze in the movie universe because he's unfamiliar with how dangerous Ooze is. That being said, he was likely aware that Rita, for her part, also had the Green Ranger abilities for a time. But given that she had managed to get her hand somehow on that power coin, he likely kind of regarded as, well, she's kind of, earned the right to have it to an extent. But he's also the sort to keep a malicious eye on her, and should she ever slip up, throw her back in the trash can that she came out of, which he does. So right from the get-go, we've got Zedd just overpowering the scene. He overpowers Rita. He restores to Goldar his wings. He sends down a new souped-up version of the Putty Patrol, who actually give the Rangers quite a bit of trouble initially because they don't know that you have to tap the Z. And even then, sometimes they still get their butts whipped at times, every now and then, by these putties. These putties are obviously far more formidable and far more crafty at times. Well, not by much. They're still putties. And with that said, with Zedd, how do I put it? With Zedd taking up Rita's position as ruler of that region of space, or at least taking that region and putting it under his own domain, his own direct rule, this puts him in direct conflict with the Rangers, whom quickly become familiar with how he operates. Now, in his first few episodes, or at least the first one or two, he's kind of probing and trying to already establish a bit of his pattern of turning Ranger against Ranger. You look at Putty on the Brain, for example. He's clearly trying to get Billy and Zach to attack the other Rangers. He's trying to do this divide and conquer stratagem. He's trying to siphon power. He's trying to overwhelm the Rangers with too many monsters, one after another, one battle after the other. And overall, in the initial part of season 2, he's pretty successful. And he's just sending wave after wave of monster, as or wave after wave of men at them, as Zap Brannigan once joked, with Zordon pretty familiar with how Zedd operates to an extent, and familiar with Zedd himself. There's a comic book where it introduces the idea that Zedd was from Eltar. I don't really like that idea because the way Zedd speaks of even Eltar, it's full of contempt. And he doesn't, I don't think he should be from Eltar to an extent. In a way, I guess I kind of regard Zedd as far more ancient than Zordon, in that it's basically every tyrant breeds the tyrant killer. So if you disagree and you like that comment, by all means, love it. Love what you love. Don't listen to me on that one. But when it comes to the Rangers, as we keep mentioning and harping, I imagine it's probably getting a little tiresome to repeat this. Zedd overpowers and drives Tommy's powers just over the cliff, pushing Tommy to constantly morph and fight, and for his powers to exhaust themselves, or trying to drain those abilities and turn them on the other Rangers. This is another tactic he's fond of, with the one, I think, Bug Monster or something, siphoning them, chucking them. And the other Rangers really struggle with this. Well, it's basically the power of a ranger being chucked at them. It is pretty powerful. And with Zedd just throwing this at them, along with probably a tri-daily monster almost, you got here a villain who isn't afraid of throwing away some of his monsters. On the other hand, he does seem to be attached to a few, such as the Sentinel Guardian, I think it is, who is leaking green ooze or something from that one statue. And Zedd's kind of wanting him at his full power, but the guy takes a while to charge up. So that leads him to getting pretty steamed when he fears the Rangers might discover the truth of what he's been hatching. That being said, likely it's shortly after Zedd's appearance that Zordon truly begins to work on his magnum opus as far as power coins go, the White Ranger powers, because he needs a new weapon. He needs a new tactic, because the green powers are unreliable. They're unstable. And Zedd knows this. Zordon knows this. Tommy knows this. Rita knows this. Everybody knows this. Even Bulk and Skull know it. And the trouble is, I'm joking there about Bulk and Skull, but the trouble is that Zedd applies this knowledge a little too well. That being said, it's in the first part of the Sword of Light episode, which is the power transfer, that you see Zedd unveil his own ace in the hole, his own trump card, so to speak, in the form of Serpentera, the greatest of the Zords, or at least greatest till, I think in universe, the Thunder Ninja Megazord or whatever from the movie, or from season 3. But I would probably class that a little higher on the pecking order of power, but I'm not sure. Serpentera is really powerful. Blows up a planet, punching. I think our more phenomenal review is up on this episode, isn't it? Well, in it I explain that world, the Lost World, is probably I think it's in the Lost Galaxy, which later Lost Galaxies built up the Lost Galaxy and whatnot, which is pretty cool. But that said, this Lost World looks like it's got almost a force field around it, and Serpentera punches through and blows everything up, including all the artifacts on that planet, which that's impressive. So with that said, the fact that Zedd's got that ruthless edge and that impulsive side to him, I'm actually going to say I think is a strength of Zedd's in a way, because how do I put it? Rita could at times be a little impulsive, but not. Well, yeah, actually, she is about as impulsive as Zedd. Okay, bad example. Okay, what's a good villain to use here? What the heck? Banshira, for example, lacked kind of almost any impulsiveness. She just simply turned constantly to her right-hand man or her son to basically do everything for her, and never seemed to have the guts to fight her own battles and to do much of anything herself. She was not the sort to get her own hands dirty, despite being really, really powerful, as Power Rangers Time Force proves, with the revived Vibra having the powers of Banshira. So you look at Zedd, though, he has no problem with getting his own bien sali. He has no problem with getting his own hands really, really dirty. And Serpentera is a case in point. I wonder if he designed it. I'm pretty sure he did, but I know he powered it up. I'm pretty sure he powered it up at least. But, you know, blast through force field, destroy planet. All to avoid the power transfer, because he knew that if Zordon could get another 3 Rangers, this would decisively give Zordon an advantage. And we do have to look at the power transfer as an advantage in favor of Zordon and the Power Rangers. Because in universe, by then, I know that in real life, the reactors walked off set for legitimate reasons. But in universe, Jason, Trini, and Zach were pretty exhausted. And essentially, this would be replacing the Vanguard with a fresh team in a way. You'd have a fresh red, yellow, and black Rangers, which Zedd could not afford strategically. He had been working very hard to grind down Jason, Trini, and Zach, or at least Trini and Zach, and work at chipping away at Jason's kind of self-restraint with his temper. He was working very carefully to also grind down Jason himself a little as well. So he was building things up perfectly for his master plans. But with the power transfer, this is the first real loss, I would argue, Zedd kind of suffers. Because honestly, I don't think he at all wanted the power transfer. Before that, yeah, he lost a few times to Tommy, primarily regarding the Green Ranger abilities with that green crystal and the whole time travel thing in that episode, which was pretty funny and pretty weird and pretty cool, if I'm being honest. And you've got also, I guess the White Ranger abilities are a bit of a loss for him. But that was going to happen no matter what, arguably. So, if I had to make the case, I'd probably say that Zedd, how do I put it? Excuse me. Zedd, despite the fact that he did lose with the green crystal, he still had the advantage. He still had 3 Rangers he was grinding down. He had still managed to make it so that Tommy had no abilities, removing the Green Ranger powers from the board. And he had still, like, the only Rangers only really had 2 Rangers to really rely upon, Kimberly and Billy. Oh, and on top of that, Jason's insecurities and overall his diminished confidence in regards to Tommy and the Green Ranger abilities reared its ugly head again. So, to an extent, Zordon and Tommy may have been able to deny Zedd the Green Ranger abilities, but it was a Pyrrhic victory. Another victory like that could have cost the Rangers everything. And so the Sword of Light is the first real decisive move they have where they outmaneuver Zedd. And let's be honest, he did plan to use Serpentera again, but he used up a lot of its power to destroy the one planet, which, yeah, he had to recharge it, landing it on the moon and whatnot. But I would argue that this was a defensive victory on the Rangers' parts, because they were not really going on offense per se. They were going on defense here to try to swap around some Rangers. I just regard that more as a defensive move than an offensive move. And at least in when the Rangers go and do it, like, because it's always because there's a problem because the Rangers probably moving elsewhere, or otherwise becomes incapacitated in some way from active ranger duties. So it is a very defensive move that they're making. And Zedd realized it, but failed to properly pounce on the opportunity. Not his fault. He tried. It's just timing was on the Rangers' side. So the Rangers were to put this to good use. And what I mean by that is with Aisha, Adam, and Rocky around, they now had fresh Rangers. And Rangers who were quite eager for the fight and were coming in aware that this would be a daily chore having to deal with these monsters. That being said, the trouble is they're in some ways a fresher team than Jason, Trini, and Zach. So there is a learning curve they have to figure out. That said, given that the three have probably been martial arts their whole lives, or at least as long as Jason probably was, and Zach, this, I would argue, is a far more formidable team. So Zedd's not really fighting a team almost in decline, but rather a team that's on the uptick. They only have up to go from here, and that he tries to deal with in the old-fashioned way, but it doesn't exactly work. Although he nearly succeeds when he does that weird spell that makes Tommy and Kimberly feel insecure and attack each other until they smell the roses and rediscover their love for each other, which, just saying that, is pretty funny. That said, I would argue that Zedd himself, it was to his advantage to marry Rita in that from a certain, I know she kind of slips a love potion into his bloodstream, his tubes. I don't mean that in a dirty way. I just mean, a love potion he fights off it, and yet he still falls in love with her. On the other hand, it is a good strategic match considering that Rita is pretty powerful and does hate the Rangers, and she can come up with the odd occasional good idea. The only thing is her idea of throwing all of her old monsters at the Rangers is not a bad idea, but the problem is it's too late. The Rangers have grown too powerful and too coordinated, and those monsters just could never work anymore. Sadly for Zedd and Rita. That said, the other element to Zedd and Rita is that by combining their powers, they are able to create stronger monsters than before. And my internet's getting shaky again. I'll just wait this out because I just want it to not be unstable. I don't want people to. Let me just troubleshoot. Okay, never mind. It fixed. All right. Well, combining their powers, they're able to create stronger monsters. And yet their plans still fail, if by the skin of their teeth. And the thing is, I just remembered. There's also the other factor that Dan and I have just mentioned in previous streams and in some videos is that there was also a psychological element to Zedd when it came to the original team. And that's that they never really saw him, so you assumed a larger-than-life kind of shape in their minds because, well, you don't know what he looks like. You've never seen him before. You've never dealt with him before. You're not accustomed to dealing with him, so you imagine something worse than what he probably is. And thus, you weaken yourself and you head in discouraged and whatnot. Just going to move something. So, with that said, Rita also proved that Zedd is fallible and he does make mistakes because she slipped into his quarters and managed to slip him that love potion and seduce him, which that's all sorts of creepy. That said, well, I just mean because she's really repulsive. She's hideous as heck. Anyways, Rita manages to marry Zedd. Zedd falls for her. And you get let me just think about this for a minute. You get, for one thing, by the time of the movie, Zedd, who has reached a boiling point with the Rangers. Oh, my internet's giving me trouble. Can you guys still hear me? Or am I getting choppy right now? Probably should have asked whether people could hear me. Let me just check my audio. Hello. Yep, it's working. Oh my gosh. Oh, I think the person viewing right now is from Twitch. Huh. Usually I have more people from YouTube. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So we've got someone from Twitch. Cool. I just stream there because, well, I don't have too many other platforms to stream to. Everything I produce is also doubled over on Rumble. So, to a large extent, as I've linked it to my accounts, because why not have an extra platform? And I also stream to Twitter. But Twitch, I think I've only got 8 followers? Oh, that's kind of neat. Sorry, hope you don't mind me commenting. I didn't expect that. But you're more than welcome, Ranger. Anyways, where was I? All right, Zedd had reached a boiling point by the time of the 1995 movie because, well, nothing's worked so far. There's a fresh team, or half team. He has joined forces with Rita. That has not worked. Now, one difference between the TV series and the movie is that Baboon Squad are not present in the movie, but they are present in season 3. So, yeah, that's one difference. To be honest, I always kind of hoped Zedd would just wipe them out because I don't like Baboon Squad. I don't find them funny. They're not Bulk and Skull. Bulk and Skull are funny. Baboon Squad? No, they're not funny at all. But Zedd, the trouble is season 3 was not a good time for Zedd as a character. And as a fan of him as a villain, he's just, how do I put it? Zedd ends up becoming comic relief when he probably shouldn't be quite in the way he's presented in season 3. Season 3 is a very arguably lackluster Power Rangers season. I consider it one of the worst ever made. I kind of regard most of it as non-canon because at least that's my personal view. I don't really care for that season. But season 2 is the golden age for me. And there's also Zeo that's quite good, I guess. And you've got, I say I guess because I don't really remember it. Right now I'm still sorting through a lot of the more phenomenal reviews for, I think, season 2. So between that and the regular videos that go on the main channel and also publishing content for Storyfire, I'm often overwhelmed. But I know that's no excuse. But that said, hopefully this week or next week we'll see a more phenomenal review. Hopefully I'll be able to drop one. I should very much like to. Anyways, as for the person on Twitch, feel free to check out Power Rangers Corner. Different. Not one word. Over on YouTube, if ever you want to go on YouTube and subscribe. Because I don't think any of my videos are over on Twitch. So it'd be easy to, if you want, check out some of our content. Currently, I'm thinking maybe also videos focusing on different aspects of the villains might be good, because there are different elements to the characters, such as symbolism, archetype, goals. I want to focus on each of Zedd's strategies. Maybe I'll do that. I'll do a villain podcast or something, or a dark side podcast. Maybe I'll name it that because Zedd's pretty much the embodiment of the dark side of the morphing grid, I believe. Or at least he darkens the morphing grid, just as Zordon tries to bring. He basically is the force of light within it, and the morphing grid is in a constant kerfuffle. I think that's the term Dan would use. It's constantly doing a teetering act between the light of Zordon and the darkness of Zedd. Now, where Ivan Ooze in the movie comes in is that he's a totally alien force. He's something else entirely. He is kind of more of a force of chaos. Zedd is more a force of order. And order is not always a good thing. Order is often very bad. And it can be very good, but can also be very, very bad. And so when Zedd comes in with, he's coming in with the angle of, I'm going to bring order. I'm going to bring my order to this region, and I'm going to purge it of everything I don't like. And that's where Ivan Ooze, on the other hand, is pure chaos. Okay, I think I should make a mythological comparison because I always like these. Lord Zedd is, I think, probably, I'm not going to go for Judeo-Christian comparison because that's too easy. But if I had to make a comparison, he might be, maybe Kronos or something. Kronos was a bit of a Lord of Order, just kind of his own variant, according to the Greek myths. But if you want, if you want another one, I guess you could say Uther Pendragon in some myths. Uther is not exactly a heroic character. He's actually a bit more of a villain in most of the Arthurian myths I've read. So he is certainly a formidable and great guy. He's just more a king in the model of King John and Richard d'Anjou. So Zedd's coming in with order, whereas Ivan's more like Loki from Norse myths. He's a demonic force that's pure chaos and just destroying for its own sake. And there is no good in him. There's no redeeming him. There's no reasoning with him. So he's the Terminator. No, I'll stick with the Loki comparison. So yeah, you've got Ivan unleashing Ivan is something of probably the worst move Zedd ever does, because he thinks he can use the chaos. I think, was that Game of Thrones term? I'm not very good at Game of Thrones. I'm not the biggest fan of the show. I don't understand the franchise. But this is a probably pretty apt quote. Zedd wants to use the chaos Ivan will create as a ladder. Now, with the actual quote, I always wondered, ladder to what? But with Zedd, it's clearly, what he's clearly trying to do is just throw a hand grenade into the situation in the form of Ivan News to overpower everyone and reduce everyone to rubble and ash, while he then slaps in his order and says, "Ha, I'm in charge now." But this is not something that could end well. Sorry for the constant drinks of water. It's just, usually I have Dan to bounce off of, and Dan will cover for me, but he's not here, and I'm flying solo. I hope I'm not doing too bad a job. I feel I'm maybe going at a breakneck speed, and other times I'm getting the feeling I'm going super slow-mo, and I don't really... I'm just checking something. Okay. I don't really want to. I'm trying to keep it at the same pace we normally go at in these streams. But anyways, and I'm trying to at least make it to an hour, which I'm not sure I will, because usually Dan and I go at some length on discussing. Maybe what I'll do is, because I had planned to do streams for Tommy as White Ranger, Billy for season 2, Kim with the season 2 video, as well as the Stone Canyon trio. But maybe I'll even do a Lord Zedd stream after we release the movie review. And what I'll do with that is I'll use that as an examination of Zedd's role in the movie, just in the context of the movie. And maybe I'll even do extra streams on each of the characters, just in regards to the movie, as the movie is quite honestly awesome. But anyways, it's just I want to make it a bit of an event for the channel. But you know what? Maybe I'll just hurry out the next More Phenomenal review video, see where that's at, and hopefully shortly after the 30th anniversary and before the White Dragon movie drops, I'll have published that movie review. Excuse me. Maybe I'll also release it once we hit 500 subs, which shouldn't be too long, given we're at 341. But anyways, back on topic. Zedd, by the time of the movie, at the beginning, is needing a new secret weapon, and that is Ivan Ooze. He doesn't understand Ooze because Ooze is way beyond his power level, beyond even Master Vile. Ivan Ooze is probably the most powerful villain in all of Power Rangers history. Now, in terms of the power scaling, what I found was interesting, although I'm not the biggest fan of the Boom Studio comics, I do think there is something to be said about the power scaling that they did. If you look at Zedd, I think he's put around the dark side power level, because Darkseid has his Omega Beams, and Darkseid from DC Comics is one of the most powerful guys out there. So Lord Zedd being at about that power level makes a lot of sense. But I would probably rate Ivan Ooze around the Krona level. So just to bear in mind, Darkseid is nowhere near Krona's level in the comics, because Krona's way more powerful. Krona's way more powerful than Darkseid could ever be. Just as the Anti-Monitor is way more powerful than Darkseid could ever be. I'll just wait for the unstable connection thing to disappear. Good. Yeah. So just to repeat, just in case, Darkseid is nowhere near the power level, so to speak, of Krona or the Anti-Monitor. And so I think the same kind of power gap exists between Zedd and Ooze. That being said, there seems to be a significant difference in power, in my opinion, between Zedd and other villains. Although the one thing I always hated was that Zedd was stripped of all his abilities when Zordon went boom in the In Space season. I never liked to pay attention to that, as Zordon just suddenly exploding and purifying every villain. It just seemed really dumb to me. Never got on board with that. I prefer to think, oh, the villains are still out there, so why not? You could reuse them in later seasons. Like you could have Divatox fight Jason. You could have Rita versus Kim at some point. You could have Tommy versus Zedd. You can have all sorts of later fights that would have been great. But of course, they went the route that they did. The dumb route, not the smart route. Which, that's not an attack on In Space. There were some great ideas in that season. It's just the idea of, let's have Zordon die and purify every villain of their evil was dumb. It was not a great idea. This, I would argue, shorned the franchise of a lot of great villains, a lot of great characters, and meant that the franchise had to quickly invent new villains. But the trouble is that it also weakens earlier villains, because it means that Zordon was more powerful than all of them. Why didn't he just go, Zedd, zap, done, done? No. You can't really insert that later, because then, it causes problems in the earlier seasons. So in that regard, I prefer to take the stance. That scene doesn't happen. Now, if you disagree, that's fine. Disagree. That's the beauty of having different opinions. We're able to look at a story and make up our own minds, which that's good. But anyways, given that my chat's a barren desert, and that I've really begun to stretch. Oh, I just remembered. Zedd in Zeo has that funny trailer. That's the only joke I liked about him. Him having that mobile home. That's hilarious. I just think that bears mentioning. And as a fun fact, apparently Zedd was GDF's favorite of all the Power Ranger villains. And I think it has to do with the presence Zedd had. And he truly did have presence. Ooh, that would be one of my videos finishing. Being put together. I didn't want to share. But anyways. Seeing as how I don't really have anything else to say, and my chat's a barren desert right now, hopefully people will catch this on the rewatch. And don't forget to smash that like and that subscribe button as though you were Lord Zedd blasting at it with all of his might. And remember, Rangers, may the power protect you.